The LA Clippers shot just 38% in their Wednesday win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. How did a Kawhi Leonard and Paul George led small ball heavy Clippers beat the Timberwolves by double digits? Going to be talking about that and a potential Ivica Zubac injury on today's Locked On Clippers. Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, to subscribe to my own YouTube channel where I make more sports and Clipper content, Dime Dropper on YouTube, and of course, subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube. And for today's episode, going to be talking about how the Clippers defense was so good and led them to this victory against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Their first game against the Wolves. No Karl Anthony Towns, no D'Angelo Russell in this one for Minnesota. No Norman Powell, no John Wall, resting on the first of a back-to-back in which Kawhi Leonard will be resting the second of on Thursday against the Suns. Paul George, I think he'll play. That remains to be seen. Whether Ivica Zubac will play, going to talk about that to end the show. And if Ivica Zubac is out, that brings me to today's pinned question. And remember to comment on the YouTube version of the podcast because it's the fastest way to grow the show. And today's question is, if Ivica Zubac is out, what do you do if you're Ty Lue? Do you start with a small ball lineup with like a Nico Batum or Marcus Morris starting at center? Or do you unleash the Moose or Moses starting? Let me know what you think in the comments. But let's get right to it. And by the way, for those watching on the YouTube version, you might be happy to see that tonight we're in the Staples Center. No, but finally I got my green screen set up. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Does it look better than the plain white wall that I had before this? It's probably not looking perfect. I mean, I'm still going to look for images that look perfect. But hey, let me know what you think. At the Staples Center right now. And the Staples Center, or the Crypto.com Arena, was the site of where the Clippers beat the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight by a final score of 99-88. It was a very ugly game, not a very aesthetically pleasing basketball game. But for a Clipper fan, when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are on the court, it's always aesthetically pleasing. And they just could not hit shots to start the game. I think both teams couldn't really hit shots, but the Wolves definitely had the better start. And Anthony Edwards, I mean, you knew without D'Angelo Russell, without Karl Anthony Towns, that the lion's share of the offense was going to come from him. And he was getting hard hedged by Ivica Zubac when the screens were being set beyond the three-point line. So when the screens were being set beyond the three, Ivica Zubac was coming up right to him and kind of blitzing him, basically. And the Clippers were doing a pretty good job rotating. Remember, when Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, and Paul George are all on the court to start the game, not only can those three guys switch with one another when guys that they're guarding are setting screens, their rotations and their ability to use their length and size to get to the three-point line from the other side of the wing, from the opposite wing, I should say, within one or two strides is amazing and such a luxury for the Clips. And despite the fact that Anthony Edwards was scoring a little bit in the beginning of the game, overall, the Clippers didn't have much to deal with in terms of threats for the Timberwolves offensively. And a big reason for that is, the injuries the Wolves had, but also the Clipper defense doesn't make it any easier. Let's put it that way. And speaking of the Wolves defense, I think part of the reason why the Clippers started out slowly was because Rudy Gobert, I think in this game you saw the good and the bad of Gobert. And in the first half, he was really affecting the Clippers at the rim. He was getting them to second guess a lot of their shot attempts, causing them to make passes out of shots or just overthinking if whether they were going to shoot or pass right when they were around the basket, and caused a lot of awkward looking plays for the Clips, including for guys like Paul George and Reggie Jackson. I thought Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, in terms of their start, they were missing a couple of shots, especially Paul George, but Kawhi Leonard, he was able to get within 10, 12 feet and hit a couple of little jump hook looking shots or one-handed little push shots. And I thought Kawhi Leonard in this game, obviously great on defense, good on the glass, 8 rebounds again in this one. But I think that he was shooting a lot of threes, kind of forcing some threes, some that weren't even open. And some that weren't even really in rhythm. I thought he was just kind of trying to get him up there. He shot 6 of them and only made 1. But in the mid-range area and the in-between area, it seemed like he was almost flawless. Pretty damn good. I mean, 6 for 12 from 2 in this game, 50%. So the encouraging sign, Clipper fans, is Kawhi Leonard from mid-range, from inside the arc, from inside 18 feet, looks as good as ever. And on defense and the rebounds, and defense on the glass, I should say, he looks great. But the Clippers in the first quarter trailed 21-19. It was a pretty slow quarter. I also thought Ivica Zubac looked fairly, again, one of those games where he looked a little slow. You wonder if he was injured even before the game, because remember, he was questionable to play in the game against the Celtics. And Rudy Gobert has given Ivica Zubac some trouble in the past, and he was giving him a little bit of trouble in this game as well. Zoo just kind of looked a little passive, a little timid. He wasn't going up strong. He wasn't playing with that kind of confidence in his body language that we've seen this season, a commanding presence for the Clippers. He kind of looked like the Zubac we've seen that's gotten heavily criticized in seasons past, where he just kind of looks like he doesn't really want to play. He's setting really kind of half-assed kind of screens. And there was even a play where he was trying to do a little dribble handoff with Kawhi, and he just tossed him the ball without even setting the screen, and it was a turnover. And I was just like, man, what's going on with Zoo? And the Clippers went with a more small ball approach, even before Ivica Zubac got injured. Now, I don't know if Ivica Zubac was already injured, but the small ball look, as I talked about in the last couple of episodes, is so much different when you've got Kawhi Leonard out there. And guess who played today? And by the way, the birthday boys, both of them, Nico Batum and Robert Covington. Nico Batum, 2 years older than Rocco, but both of them played today alongside Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard. It was that same 9-man rotation that you saw against the Clippers, but instead of John Wall, since he wasn't playing, it was Robert Covington. And I thought Robert Covington and Nico Batum held it down. They were both playing small ball 5, and I thought they did a pretty good job rebounding. And Rudy Gobert is one of those centers that's not going to take advantage in the post. The best thing you got to do, or the thing you have to do, I should say, is keep him off the glass, keep him from getting offensive rebounds, and the Clippers did a pretty good job of that. Timberwolves had 7 offensive rebounds. The Clippers had 14, double that. So the Clippers were the more active team, and I thought their defense was just sharp. And when they went small, you saw a lot of switch everything, and the ability to switch with guys like Nico Batum, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, who I thought had a really solid defensive game, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, is such a luxury and exactly the vision that you thought you were seeing as a Clipper fan going into this season. So I thought the Clippers kept themselves in the game with that defense, with that small ball, and just with their ability to stay in front of the ball and use their length to close out better and make things a little frantic for the Timberwolves, cause them to play a lot of isolation basketball. And I thought that was the key to winning the game, because eventually the Clippers were going to score. You knew they were going to start making their shots. And 2 guys off the bench that really were huge in regards to that, Nico Batum and Luke Kennard. Nico Batum, 5 for 9 from the field, 3 for 7 from deep, made 2 threes in the third quarter, was just big and doing all the little things, being in the right place at the right time like usual. And then Luke Kennard, 4 3-pointers out of 7 attempts. He was 5 for 8 from the field, but overall just making big threes when they counted. And his shot making, his 3-point shooting is so valuable. But you saw so many lineups like Robert Covington, Nico Batum, Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, and Paul George out there. And when you saw that, you saw a lot of Paul George playing point guard. And you know what that led to? A Paul George triple-double. Yes. How was he able to get a triple-double? What worked so well for him and the Clippers in this one? Going to be talking about that and a little bit more about how Kawhi Leonard played, along with the rest of the starters, coming up. So we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you might not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. Maybe you've run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your world. ExpressVPN allows you to binge The Office on UK Netflix. It's so simple to do. Just sign into Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location to UK, refresh Netflix, and that's it. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries, so just imagine all the Netflix libraries you can go through. But it's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service. Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube, you name it. There are hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN to watch shows is because it's ridiculously fast. Never any buffering or lag. You can stream it in HD, no problem. It works on all your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon, expressvpn.com/lockedon to learn more. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Clippers beat the Timberwolves 99-88 at the Staples Center. That makes 3 in a row. And 8-1 since Kawhi Leonard has started. 8-2 in the 10 games that he has played. Even though he is not the best version of himself just yet, 8-2 with him says it all. By the way, Clipper fans, please, and this goes for me as well, got to get back to the Staples Center, get to games. Only 74% attendance as listed by ESPN in this one. Need Clipper fans at the games. It did look fairly empty on TV tonight. This team deserves the support, especially when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are playing. So let's get to the Staples Center. The tickets are not that expensive, especially if you look on resale. But Clippers 99, Timberwolves 88. Let's talk about Paul George, who did not have the best game shooting the ball. I thought a couple of his shots were short. Later in the game, they were long. But what he did was contributed in a variety of other ways, and that was passing the ball. He had to play a lot of point forward tonight. No John Wall, so that caused him to handle the ball a lot when Reggie Jackson was out. And again in this game, Reggie Jackson didn't get too many minutes. He got 26 minutes. I thought he was okay. Had his good and bad moments on both ends of the floor. 4 for 9 for Reggie. 1 for 2 from 3. 10 points. Didn't play the last 10 minutes, 45 seconds, which I thought was a good thing. I'm happy with Reggie getting less minutes. I think between the 20 to 30 minute mark is good for him in terms of how many minutes he should get per game, regardless of who's playing or not. I don't think that him playing 30 plus minutes is good for the Clippers long term. I really don't. Ty Lue played him 26 minutes. He gave 10 points. He shot the ball well. That's all you need. He made some decent plays defensively, got 2 steals. One of them is where he deflected the ball and it went off the backboard. Active hands. Good stuff, Reggie. But Paul George, I thought he was just really good in terms of making good reads in the pick and roll, whether it was Zubac setting the screen or guys like Reggie setting the screen or Terrence setting the screen. I thought that he did a good job driving and kicking, and he got to the line more than any other Clipper. 8 free throw attempts for Paul, made 7 of them. Love when he's being aggressive. And that's why he had 17 points, even though he shot 4 for 13. 17 points. Only shot 1 time in the fourth quarter, but got 11 rebounds and 11 assists for his first triple-double as a Clipper. You got to love it. And he also played good defense as well. Paul George really starting to play well since he's come back from that injury. You love to see it. He is starting to, as Ivica Zubac has had a tough last couple of games, starting to kind of take the lead, in my opinion, for that Clippers player of the season so far. If you were to come up, if that was an award and you had to choose, I think Paul George is starting to take the lead in those power rankings because, again, another very solid performance from him despite the lack of efficiency. And as I say always, I think efficiency can often be a little overrated in today's game. But for the Clippers, the second quarter woes have been something that they've been battling a bit of late. And I thought, again, in this game, they weren't great. Only 19 points scored. But thankfully, as I said earlier, the defense, that's what kept them in the game. 22 points allowed only for the Clippers in that second quarter. So it made it so that it was close at halftime, 43-38. Minnesota was winning. I thought part of the reason why that was, though, was a lack of offense from the Clippers in terms of moving the basketball. Thought the ball was sticking, and you saw when the Clippers are going small, what is the other team going to do? Switch everything. And it was causing guys like Nas, when they went to Nas Reed on the bench, and Bryn Forbes, Jalen Noel. This Timberwolves team, they're not that deep, and when they're missing D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, you got Kyle Anderson starting, who's one of their better bench players, Austin Rivers, former Clipper, Austin Rivers starting. So they really only had Nas Reed and Jalen Noel, who are consistent bench guys when they're fully healthy, play. You got 4 minutes of Bryn Forbes. You just didn't get much on their bench players, whereas the Clippers, you're getting 29 points from two bench players, Luke Kennard and Nico Batum. And Nico Batum was just phenomenal. He was playing small ball five a lot, and you know how well he can do defensively on Rudy Gobert. Thought a lot of the Clipper forwards were just doing a good job of fronting Gobert, making it so that the Timberwolves players didn't even look at him. And it kind of felt like Utah again, where the Clippers were switching smaller guys or wings onto Rudy Gobert, and they weren't even giving him the ball. They don't trust him. They didn't trust him in the post. And I watched a lot of the Timberwolves games at the beginning of the season, and I thought Gobert was solid, but they didn't really need him to post guys up. They had Karl Anthony Towns out there. Not too many teams under that switch everything strategy just yet. But now they're gonna, and Karl Anthony Towns is not there, so you're going to need Rudy Gobert to score a little bit more. And it may be a rough patch for the Wolves. They dropped to 13-15 after this loss. It hasn't really gone according to plan for them, but if you're a Wolves fan, you can say they started out even worse last season. So hopefully Karl Anthony Towns can come back quickly from that calf injury. It's been a really tough year for D'Angelo Russell so far, but it's no doubt to me that he helps that team because without him, they just don't have nearly as much offense, as much shot creation. And also Jordan McLaughlin, one of my favorite players, actually probably my favorite college player of all time, did not play today as well. The backup point guard went to USC, Etiwanda High School, local here in Los Angeles. But the Clippers, another reason, again, as I said earlier, why they weren't getting off in the first half was because they were just missing shots. I thought they were creating a lot of good ones. A lot of them were short. Marcus Morris had another tough shooting night tonight. I know he played really well against Boston, but 4 for 13 in this one, 2 for 8 from 3. But the one thing I will say about Senior, he continued to play good defense. And I really like the way he has played defense and rebounded this year. 7 rebounds for Moak today. In this one, he was finding ways to contribute besides scoring. And that's one of the reasons why I said maybe we should trade Marcus Morris in the summer, because he wasn't doing enough of this last season or the season before, finding ways to contribute when he was not making shots. And I think in this game and in various games this season, he has done exactly that. But the Clippers are missing a ton of open threes, shooting a lot of them, I might add. As I said, with Kawhi Leonard shooting a lot of threes and not too many mid-ranges. I thought he got more into that in the second half, but most of the shots he was getting were coming off curls, trying to get to the basket, or shooting 3 balls in the first half. But Clippers went into the half down by 5, having only shot 27% in the first half. And they even went down by 6 points in the third quarter, 51-45, but then responded with a little 8-0 run. Marcus Morris Sr. started hitting some shots. The Clippers' shots just started to fall, and the quality eventually showed out. with Nico Batum and Luke Kennard knocking down open threes off good ball movement caused by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And again, just the presence of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George makes a huge difference. Kawhi Leonard, when he gets the ball in the mid-range area, mid-post, he automatically gets all the eyes on the court from the opposing team attracted to him. He gets double teams. He gets loaded up on. He finds the open man. And when one of those open guys is Paul George and other great shooters like the Clippers have, that spells trouble for the defense. And Ivica Zubac did not play after 5 seconds were left in the third quarter. He went out of the game with an injury, and his status for the game against Phoenix is questionable. Going to be talking about what the Clippers' plan of action should be, or what the Clippers' plan of action should be or could potentially be in the Phoenix game if Zubac does not play, because that's been the biggest fear for Clipper fans all season. If Ivica Zubac gets hurt, what should they do? Going to be talking about that coming up. Let me tell you something that's worth pausing the pod for a second. Are we paused? Because you got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors. And you know what? I haven't had Built Bar in a while, and my mouth is watering just reading these. Please send me some Built Bar. One of them is cookie dough topper, the other is coconut brownie bar, and the other is coconut brownie topper. They also have white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. I still haven't had the puff version. I really want one. But first off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. Such chewy goodness on the inside. You'd think you'd be eating a candy bar. Just sink your teeth into that first bite and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not kidding. There'll be a time before you tried these new Built Bar flavors and you won't even remember it. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. All right, let's talk about Ivica Zubac. So he hasn't been playing the best lately since Kawhi Leonard's come back, and I don't think that's Kawhi Leonard's fault or anything like that. I think it's just when Kawhi Leonard plays, it causes the Clippers to go with more of the small ball approach because his size, his presence on defense just gives the Clippers not only another wing, but another very good defender, another guy that can rebound and does a good job gang rebounding so that it causes the other teams to play a lot of isolation and they're not getting by guys as much. And when they do, the help defender, and I talked about this many times before, is a Kawhi Leonard, is a Robert Covington, is a Paul George. Not a John Wall, Norman Powell, not a John Wall, Norman Powell, or a Luke Kennard, or a Reggie Jackson. When you have smaller guys in and someone gets beat off the dribble and those are the guys rotating, it's not really a big deal. If you get by Paul George and then Kawhi Leonard's rotating, it could affect your shot a little bit. So that's the big reason, along with his defense stopping the ball, that causes the Clippers to play a lot more small ball with Kawhi. And when Ty Lue leans into Robert Covington, who I thought was really solid in this game, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 for 7. He was 1 for 6 from deep, but I think he did some good things on defense. It causes the Clippers to play with that small ball unit and a little bit more, and that's less Ivica Zubac. That being said, DeAndre Ayton is one of the opponents where Ivica Zubac is needed more than any. And the Clippers probably will be without Zoo on Thursday against Phoenix. And Phoenix, started out the season pretty well, have been a little bit worse of late. The bad part is they did not play on Wednesday night, so they're going to have had a day off. Their last game was against Houston on Tuesday, and they lost by 14 in Houston. The Suns are currently 16-12. Chris Paul was back in that game. Devin Booker did not play. I am not sure if Devin Booker is not playing, but if he's not, if the Clippers have Paul George and obviously John Wall, I think the Clippers should honestly win that game. I think they're playing good basketball, and when the Suns don't have Devin Booker, they really struggle to create off the dribble and break your defense down. But let's just talk about the potential options if Ivica Zubac does not play. So there is the option of starting Nico and Robert Covington at center. So like going with Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Nico, Marcus Morris, and Robert Covington. So you can switch 2 through 5 and then have Reggie Jackson in there switching like 1 through 3. So a lot of switching. That's an option. Or you can go with Moses Brown starting alongside Nico, Marcus, Paul, and Reggie. I think you got to continue to go with the wing heavy set when Kawhi doesn't play, not Reggie and Luke Kennard. Because we saw how that worked against Miami and what I've been saying all season about that undersized backcourt. I don't like that. Go with the wing-heavy approach or even Terrence Mann starting. That's not a problem either. And by the way, Terrence Mann was played in this game a little bit quieter, 2 for 6, but I still making a positive impact on defense and just, more wings, more length, more guys that can guard, positive for the Clippers. And by the way, this was the least amount of points the Timberwolves scored this season with 88. So great stuff by the Clips. They move on to 17-13, but there is no doubt the most obvious thing, if Zubac is out, need Musa minutes. Need Musa Diabate out there for his ability to switch, for his ability to move his feet and be a presence on the glass. Need Musa. Need him. Because the Clippers, besides that, just have Moses Brown and small ball. I don't know if that's going to be a great approach. That if DeAndre Ayton was playing really well before Chris Paul came back. Don't know how he's done the last couple of games, but it's going to be a tough game. Clippers against the Suns on opening night this season got waxed. I was at that game, made a vlog on my channel if you want to go check it out. But let's see how they do. I think most fans won't be too mad about a loss on Thursday, but let's see if the Clippers can get a win. They've been playing better of late. Just got to continue to play good defense and keep Ayton off the glass. Let's see what Ty Lue does if the Clippers don't have Zoo. As for Ivica Zubac, I really hope it's not serious because the Clippers are going to be in trouble if it is. Even though the small balls look better of late, in games in which Zubac and Kawhi Leonard don't play, it can get really ugly. And in general, even when Kawhi Leonard does play, you really want Zubac because the Clippers have not shown that they have a reliable replacement for him. But a good win in this one. Clippers beat the Timberwolves in their first matchup of the season. Yes, an injured Timberwolves squad, but all that matters is the win, and they got it. That makes 3 in a row. Kawhi Leonard has been just, even though the stats might not show it, the guy has really just been great since he's played this season. 8-2 when he has played. The Clippers only allowed 45 points in the second half by the Timberwolves. Kawhi Leonard had 19 points and 8 rebounds in this game on 7 for 18 shooting. So even though not the most efficient night, 19 points. He played 31 minutes, so another game over 30. You got to love it. He is slowly getting there, and the Clippers are slowly getting healthier. The age-old proverb is go Clippers, but remember to comment on today's question on Locked On Clippers. What would you do if Zoo can't play against Phoenix? And, of course, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. Let me know if you enjoyed. And thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb, go Clippers. Let's go. Big win.